Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And in today's range report we're going to be taking a look at another classic Smith & Wesson revolver. And this one is chambered in a really interesting cartridge, the .22 Remington Jet Magnum. And the revolver we're going to be reviewing is the Smith & Wesson Model 53-2 with a 6-inch barrel. This is a K-frame revolver made for 14 years between 1960 and 1974. Now the side of the barrel says it is in .22 Magnum, but as I said, that is not quite the case. It's really in .22 Jet Magnum, but you can shoot .22 Magnum through this and .22 long rifle, and you have a couple of different options for doing so. Now the cylinder that comes with this particular revolver when you would have bought it is in .22 Jet, and .22 Jet is really odd. It is like a .357 Magnum necked down to take a .22 caliber projectile. But this stuff is pretty darn rare and kind of expensive. So what else can you do? Well, you could have bought, back in the day, multiple cylinders for this revolver. You could have bought one in .22 Magnum and .22 long rifle. And I do have one in .22 long rifle that I can put into the revolver simply by taking out one screw. And Smith & Wesson provided a conversion which essentially took a .22 Jet cartridge, bored it out, and you can shoot .22 long rifle through this, but you have to change something on the hammer, which we will talk about a little bit later. So really, you can shoot 3 different calibers through this, and we're going to shoot .22 long rifle and .22 Jet through it because I don't have the .22 Magnum cylinder. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at today. So this is going to be something interesting. Now, before we get to the range and talk about the things that I like and don't like, as always, I want to thank the people that make these videos possible. First and foremost is the owner of this really cool revolver. He's a local fan and subscriber named Jack. In fact, he's the second person named Jack that lends guns to the channel, so I call him Jack number 2. So thank you again, Jack. I always want to thank my Patreon supporters because through their monthly donations and support, they help keep the lights on around here, and I couldn't do this without their support. And if you guys want to join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, there will be a link in the description below, and you can see all of these videos early. And as always, I want to thank my primary sponsor for all of these range reports, the best grip company in the world, Brownworks. And I know if you're like me and you love guns made of steel and wood, like these classic revolvers, you probably have a great collection of very similar firearms. And these guns take wood panel grips, and you might be in the market for something that would turn your firearms into something unique and one of a kind. Well, the grip company you have to check out is Brownworks. Brownworks is a custom grip company making a wide variety of grips for a wide variety of firearms out of a wide variety of exotic woods and materials. Mark, the owner, is an artist and he is a craftsman. He can make these grips out of custom laminate woods. He can apply custom logos, custom engravings, custom textures, finish them in a wide variety of colors, and even apply exotic materials like snakeskin and alligator skin to these grips to make them unique and one of a kind. And every set of grips Mark makes is one of a kind. And if you guys are in the market for these types of aesthetically pleasing grips, I'm going to ask you guys to go over to his website, which I will link in the comment section below, as well as add a coupon code for 10% off your first order. So please go over to his website, see everything he has to offer, and when you place that first order for your custom grips, please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. Alright, so once again, let's talk about the really cool and interesting revolver that we will be taking a look at today. The Smith & Wesson Model 53-2. This is a K-frame revolver made between 1960 and 1974. Being the -2, it has the pinned barrel and the recessed cylinder. And this was, of course, offered in multiple cylinders with 22 Magnum and 22 long rifles. So this is kind of a multi-caliber revolver. And one of the ways that you would go between center fire and rim fire is this has a very unique hammer. And you can see there's a little latch on this hammer. So if I pull this hammer back, you can actually change the place where the firing pin will be struck because there are 2 firing pins in here. And I'm not sure if my camera is going to show you that. I think it's showing you right there. And so if you pull it back, it's in rim fire mode. And if you push it forward, it's in center fire mode. So there it is back, and there it is forward, and that would hit the different firing pins, allowing you to go between a center fire and a rim fire cartridge. Now, 22 Remington Jet Magnum was never a standardized cartridge, and you will see it called by different names in different places. So this is known as 22 Jet, which is what I will mainly refer to it as here in this video. But you also might hear it called 22 Center Fire Magnum, 22 CFM, 22 Remington Jet, and 5.6 by 33 millimeter rimmed. The advertised speed of this projectile is 2,460 feet per second. However, in this revolver, typically you will get between 1,700 and 1,800 feet per second. So that's what this thing is all about, and this 22 Jet is supposed to be a screaming cartridge. And all of the other reviews I have seen on this revolver all say this is a flamethrower. It's loud. You probably want to use both earplugs and earphones when you fire this, and that it's going to be not good for self-defense because of that. If you ever had to fire this without hearing protection, you're probably going to go deaf. But now let's talk about the things that I like and don't like about this revolver before trying it out at the range. And the first thing I love about this is that it is a classic Smith & Wesson revolver made in what I think is the golden age of Smith & Wesson revolvers. The -2s are just perfection. That pin barrel, the recessed cylinder, it does not have the frame lock like many of the modern Smith & Wessons do today, and some people affectionately call that the Hillary hole because it was added during the Clinton administration. So it has all the features people want and lacks the features that people don't want. And these are just considered some of the best revolvers of that era. Now, being a classic revolver, it also has the square butt frame. And I do prefer that a lot. I've always felt these square butts were a little bit more ergonomic for my hand size than the round butts. I like the fact it does have the interchangeable cylinders, allowing you to go between multiple calibers, and because 22 Jet is so expensive, being able to shoot 22 long rifle through this is a really good option. And finally, the last thing that I really like about this revolver is the trigger. All classic Smith & Wesson revolvers all seem to have an absolutely fantastic trigger. So before I talk about the things I don't like, I want to adjust the camera, get out the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge, and I want to show you what this trigger is all about. So let's do that now. And being a classic Smith & Wesson revolver, these triggers are really refined, both in double action and single action. So I do have the Lyman trigger pull weight gauge out to measure this. Now I'm going to make sure that the hammer is, of course, in center fire mode, because you don't want it to hit the rim firing pin, because that might damage the cylinder. And of course, we will check and make sure this firearm is empty, and it looks like we are good. So the first thing I want to do is check out the double action pull. So let me go ahead and clear the average here. And normally double action pulls are too heavy to measure, but this one I think is light enough that we can do it. So let's try this out. Here we go. The first pull in double action. 8 pounds, 4.9 ounces. It's definitely heavy, but not so heavy that it's unmanageable. Next pull. 7 pounds, 9.6 ounces. £7, 9.4 ounces. 8 pounds, 2.5 ounces. And finally, we have 7 pounds, 13.5 ounces, which gives us an average of 7 pounds, 14.4 ounces on the double action trigger pull. That is pretty darn good. So now let's clear that out and let's try this in single action. Now this is where I think this trigger truly shines. And our first pull, 3 pounds, 5.2 ounces. 3 pounds, 5.9 ounces. Three pounds, 0.1 ounces. 3 pounds, 7.7 ounces. And finally, 3 pounds, 5.3 ounces, which gives us an average of 3 pounds, 4.8 ounces. And that is just in that sweet spot for a revolver, in my personal opinion, in single action mode. So this trigger is absolutely outstanding. And that's just what I expect from these classic Smith & Wessons. All right, so that's what this trigger is all about. So now let's talk about a few things about this gun that I don't like. And I think I just led you on with something, because there's actually nothing about this revolver I don't like. Everything about it is awesome. It's a classic Smith & Wesson revolver. It's beautiful. I love the controls. I love the balance. I love the ergonomics. I love the aesthetics. There's nothing about this gun as it sits here on the workbench that I don't like. I think the only thing I'm concerned about, or maybe I'm just questioning it, is this caliber. Everyone says it is very, very loud with a very high pitch to it. So I am going to use double hearing protection when I shoot this. Now, when it comes to all of the different tests that I do with the range, I'm going to shoot this 3 ways, and I will always indicate which way I'm doing it in the beginning of each video. And so what I'm going to do first is shoot 22 long rifle through this using the 22 long rifle cylinder. I will then move to 22 jet and then try it once again with 22 long rifle, but using the conversions. Now, I filmed all of the 22 long rifle cylinder stuff at the same time. I didn't want to take out this screw too many times, but I'll piece everything together. So I do the same tests multiple ways. So here we go. Let's go to the range and let's find out how nice this revolver is, or how inaccurate it is, or how loud it is, because I really don't know what to expect. So as always, I'll start off with the target at 7 yards. Once again, starting off with 22 long rifle, then going to 22 jet, and then 22 long rifle again with the conversion. And what you might not always see is when I'm going between rim fire and center fire, I always have to remember to adjust this lever on the hammer for the type of ammunition that I plan on using. So let's go to the range and let's find out what this revolver is all about. And I can tell you, those results really surprised me. First off, the gun is very accurate, and normally I do not shoot revolvers very well at all. And this gun is well balanced, has a great trigger, and it feels very natural to shoot for me. So already, I'm liking this one a lot. But now let's talk about 22 Jet. Well, after shooting it, it has a bigger bark than it does a bite. Even though it's based off of the 357 Magnum, and you do get a huge flash and it is really loud, the recoil is not that bad at all. It really is an interesting feeling shooting this cartridge, and normally, once again, I don't like shooting very loud and obnoxious calibers. But this honestly is kind of fun. You definitely want to use as much hearing protection as possible though. But now let's talk about the 22 long rifle tests. Now this is actually what surprised me. When I used the 22 long rifle cylinder, I felt a lot of gas escaping between the cylinder and the forcing cone. I could feel it on my hands. But when I used the conversions, I didn't get that at all. I had about the same accuracy with both, but using the conversion cases, it was a much more pleasurable experience. And as these tests go forward, pay attention to the times when I have just the 22 long rifle cylinder installed. But speaking of more tests, now I want to double the distance on this target, going out to about 15 yards. And I want to do the same tests again and see if this accuracy holds up. So let's go back to the range. And pretty much I have the same comments as the previous segment. The gun is grouping well. It did open up just a little bit, but the 22 Jet is grouping a little bit higher. Now, if I was anticipating the shot because it has more of a report, that group would be lower. So I'm not sure why it's grouping higher, but it's still a pretty darn good group. And everything I said about the 22 long rifle, both out of the 22 long rifle cylinder and the conversion cases, is exactly the same. But this gun shoots exceptionally well for me. Now, this gun is really accurate, so now I want to bench rest this, and I'm going to set up the target at 25 yards, shoot this from a barrier, and see what the best group I can get with it is. And for me, not being a revolver shooter, I'm going to take that group all day. I am really impressed with this. In fact, I think this is the most accurate and natural shooting revolver that I have ever reviewed. I really like this, and I didn't think I would. I kind of wish that they made this revolver today. I might pick up one. It is quite interesting and unique. And for me, as I said, it's just simply a great shooter, and this trigger is awesome. All right, so now speaking of the trigger, I already showed you this has a pretty darn light double action pull. So I'm going to bring the target back in, and now I'm going to shoot this exclusively double action and see if I can continue to shoot it accurate. And hands down, this is probably the nicest double action trigger on a revolver I've ever shot. This thing is fantastic, and it's just as accurate in double action as it is single action for me. All right, so the next test I want to do is load this thing up with 22 Jet and just shoot it fast. Now, this is probably going to show a deficiency in my revolver shooting. Something I always do when it comes to these revolvers is I never let the trigger out far enough, because you have to shoot them double action when you shoot them fast. So here we go. We're going to see if I can overcome that, and let's just see what shooting a whole cylinder of 22 Jet as fast as you can looks like. And yeah, what happened I expected to happen. And I can't shoot this kind of fast. No, I am not a Jerry Miculek. And no, this is not some type of tricked out revolver. And I don't think the average gun person can ever shoot a double action revolver as fast as they can shoot a semi-auto. It's just the nature of the beast. So I did get hung up on that just a little bit. But 22 Jet shooting this thing fast is not that bad. You just get that big flash, and the recoil is extremely manageable. And that's probably the biggest surprise and takeaway from this range report for me. So what are my final thoughts on the Smith Wesson Model 53-2? This is definitely a very interesting revolver that I had no idea existed before it was lent to the channel. 22 Jet is definitely a very cool caliber. It has way more bark than bite, and as all of the other reviewers have said, I would not recommend this for self-defense. Just because if you had to pull it in your house and there was an intruder, well, you might take them out. However, you're not going to hear ever again. And I know it doesn't come across on the camera. The pitch of this caliber is exceptionally high, and it is very loud. And I think that higher pitch is what gives you the sensation of it being so much louder. So anytime you shoot this caliber, make sure you are using hearing protection. And if you're in a low light situation, you are going to get a gigantic flash. This gun is also the most accurate revolver for me that I have ever shot and reviewed. It's exceptionally balanced. This thing is so much fun. It's a classic Smith & Wesson that shoots like I would hope a revolver would. I am so impressed by this. I love the aesthetics. It is just honestly a cool revolver, and I had no idea I would love it as much as I do. So on my star system, how would I rate the Smith & Wesson Model 53-2? Well, I can already tell you, once again, this is the nicest revolver I've ever shot, hands down. So obviously it's getting 5 out of 5 stars. Yes, a perfect review. And in order to get a perfect review, the gun has to exceed my expectations. I already thought it was going to be a pretty darn good revolver. It's a classic Smith & Wesson. I didn't think I would like this cartridge. I knew it was going to be loud, but it's a lot of fun. The gun is so accurate with an exceptional trigger. It just surprised me so much. So it exceeded all of my expectations and made me look like a better shot than I actually am. So 5 out of 5 stars, a perfect review for the Smith & Wesson Model 53-2. So let me know in the comments section below, did you even know that this caliber even existed? Have you ever shot a Model 53? And did your experiences with it mirror mine? I would love to know. So tell me in that comment section. So, as always, thanks for watching.